Hey folks, Eric from Hit Subscribe here, and I am doing yet another edition in the Freelancer Q&A series that I've been doing for quite a while now. And for anyone tuning into the live or, just after I posted in the community, sorry, it's been a few weeks. There was a kind of a combination of things going on, two of those weeks being a vacation that I was on. So yeah, it's been a bit of a break here, but I'm back at it, still going strong. And the question this week is quite simply, is attending conferences a good use of time and money for a freelancer? Now, this question, it's not specified in what capacity or like for what purpose you're attending conferences. I believe the question meant for the purposes of lead generation, but I'm going to talk about both lead generation and like upskilling in this video. So let me get into both of those. And I guess I'll tip my hand a little here by saying for both of those purposes, if you're a freelancer attending conferences, I feel like is probably not a good use of time and money, but that's not always true. So let me get into the reason I say that and the nuance that's involved here. So let's start off talking about lead generation. Is attending a good conference a good use of time and money for generating leads if you're a freelancer? And there I would say the answer is almost certainly not. So why do I say that? I guess I would say let's imagine what lead generation looks like if you attend a conference. So for the most part, if you attend a conference, you are probably attending a conference that is going to be more or less a cohort of your peers. So in the freelance software development world, usually, there's an awful lot of conferences in software and tech. And usually if you go attend one of those conferences like the Python developers meetup or something, you are attending a conference in a cohort of your peers. So it's going to be you and lots of other Python developers. And if that's the case, the people that buy app dev that pay you for your services are probably not Python developers. In fact, there's no probably about it. The people that are commissioning hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of application development, which is going to be your service as a freelancer, those people are going to be directors and VPs and CTOs and things like that. They're not Python developers, and they're probably not attending conferences about Python development, quite frankly. I won't say never, and they might be there in some kind of organizational capacity, like sponsoring the conference or having a booth or whatever the case may be, but they're probably not there as your fellow attendees. So the first thing to bear in mind is that when you're attending a conference, the people that are there with you are more likely to be competitors of yours than buyers of yours. So the people that are going to be there, the people that are around you, are not likely to do business with you in the first place. Now, if they were going to trigger somebody to do business with you, it would probably be that they would go back and report and say, hey, I met this really cool person that's a freelance Python developer. And hey, boss, or hey, boss's boss, you should give this person a call. So in as much as any lead generation were going to happen there, it would be extremely indirect, and it would be pretty hard to follow up on or verify. So you would be going to this conference and attending it in the hopes that, in the hallway talks or whatever, you kind of met up with people and got to chatting. Maybe at the end of the conference, there's a social happy hour and you're having a beer with somebody, and you're hoping that you're going to give that person a business card, and that person, who is probably a fellow developer, a peer, is going to think so highly of you from this brief conversation that they're going to go back and pull a few days later your card out of their wallet or wherever they kept it, assuming they kept it, and then mention it to their boss. And then you're going to hope that after that mention, their boss is like, gosh, I should give this person a call. I'm kind of stringing this together, and it probably sounds like borderline satirical. I don't mean to do that, but you got to understand how unlikely this chain of events is. So it's just really hard for me to connect the dots between you going to this Python developers conference and you getting hired in some capacity as a Python developer. Because again, you're going to be there with your peers. Again, the purpose of this event isn't, it's not a career fair. uh, the people that are there are interested in listening to the talks themselves. They're not there to figure out how to hire you. Even if they were there in that capacity, they would have to remember you, go all the way back to their place of business, mention you to their boss. Their boss would have to care. Their boss would have to take their recommendation at face value and value it. And then their boss would have to reach out to you. It's just so many things. So it's pretty unlikely that this is a good way to generate leads for your practice. Now, what if you were, instead of attending a Python developers conference, you were attending a CTOs who want to hire Python developers conference? Now, suspend your disbelief from a narrative perspective that such a conference exists. Let's say that it did. So let's say that you managed to find a conference that consists mainly of people that might be interested in hiring you, and you were to attend that conference. That's a much better outlook. But even still, you're going to have to kind of insert yourself into this person's orbit. So they're there eating donuts, attending the conference or whatever, and you have to go up to them and say, "Excuse me, I know you didn't express any interest in this, but how would you like to hire me?" So even if these people are predisposed to hiring you, even if that's a need, you have to overcome the sort of fact that, like, it's, again, not a career fair. So you have to kind of interrupt them and convince them to hire you. And it's going to be more doable, but it's still kind of weird. Now, what's a lot more likely is that you get into, for the price of entry, you get into some kind of conference that's aimed at CTOs, and they're not there to hire you. They're there for some other reason. So you would have to kind of get in front of them in a way that they weren't really receptive to, and overcome how awkward that was in order to get on their radar and maybe get hired. Now, all of that's possible, especially if you're charismatic, or, maybe you're just, again, at the happy hour, or you're, in between shows or talks, and you get to talking and it comes up. It can be done, but this is a pretty awkward, indirect, expensive, labor intensive way to try to generate leads. And it's not very likely to generate leads. What would be a lot more likely to generate leads among CTOs that need to hire Python developers is, any kind of like outreach or prospecting that you were doing in that community, getting in front of them when they were trying to do that. There are a lot more direct ways that you can try to generate leads than this indirect route. I think this comes up a lot because attending conferences is fun, and people kind of tend to want to do it. So there's almost this desire to be like, oh, well, I want to go do this event, and it's got to be good for like lead generation or something, right? Business, all that good stuff. Anyway, I want to go. But if you actually kind of break down what attendance is going to be like, I would say it's extremely unlikely that attending your conference is going to help you generate leads. So I'm going to get a little bit later on here into talking about how to maybe make it good for you, but that's the lead generation piece. I would say it's pretty unlikely that that attending a conference is a good way to generate leads. Speaking at a conference is another matter, and I will get to that shortly. So for lead gen, attendance probably isn't the greatest idea. Let's look at what about upskilling, improving your skills, learning, that type of thing. I would say also this is probably not a great use of time and money, but it's more likely to be a good use of time and money than the prospecting or lead generation angle. So why do I say that from an upskilling perspective, it's probably not a great use of time and money? Let's go back to the example of the Python developer. So you're freelancing doing Python development. Now, if you are a Python developer and you are landing business by acting as kind of a pseudo employee. So you're basically an employee, you're submitting resumes, you're applying to work at places, but it's through a Robert Half or something like a staffing agency, and you're technically a freelancer. In this situation, you're really an employee. This might be a decent use case for going to conferences, because who conferences and conference attendance really tends to make sense for in this capacity is mostly employees. So if you are going to the Python whatever conference to get better at Python in some capacity, this makes sense for you as a freelancer if you're a pseudo employee. If you're trying to establish a practice and you're trying to start thinking about sales and marketing and moving away from renting your skills by the hour and all that type of stuff, if you're looking to establish a business, the more you have a business, the more you have a practice that you deliver outcomes and transformation for clients, the less and less anybody cares about your skills. So for you to go to a conference and spend your time and money getting better at a skill, it's a pretty weak value proposition for you in the event that you're not directly marketing your skills. So here's what I mean. If you're saying, hey, I'm a Python freelancer and I'm a level 80 Python this and pandas that and whatever, if that's your selling point, then sure, being able to say that you got certified in this and attended this conference and this workshop and I got better at all of the things, that can make more sense in your sales process if you are selling clear-cut staff augmentation. If, on the other hand, what you're doing is helping with some kind of like applied data visualization or something like I mean, this is top of mind right now because we're doing it, but you're creating dashboards for marketing organizations to be able to make better decisions about content marketing based on data that they have at their disposal. They're not going to care if you're good at pandas or BigQuery or whatever. Like, that doesn't matter. Once you're selling outcomes, once you're selling to marketers that they're going to be able to make better decisions about content marketing campaigns, they are progressively less interested in your resume and your skill set and your certifications and what conferences you've attended. So in this capacity, attending a conference, it's not going to contribute directly to the way that you're selling yourself. Now, upskilling becomes less important if you're not selling your skills and you're selling outcomes. But if there were a conference that lets you develop the skills needed to deliver these outcomes for your clients, then in that capacity, it might be a good idea. So if you attended a like very hands-on conference to learn how to do data visualization or something like that, and that we're going to let you really make a difference in delivering outcomes for your clients, then yeah, potentially it's a good idea. So you can bleed into a situation where attending a conference for a certain kind of learning or a certain kind of workshop, if you were pretty focused about it and intentional about what you expected to get out of it, then yeah, maybe it could be a good use of your time and money. Now, that being said, there are probably better ways to get that skill, like a self-directed course through Pluralsight or Udemy or something like that. Like, there are probably better ways for you to do what you need to do in order to get that outcome with your clients. It's hard to imagine a conference being the best way to do that, because a lot of times conferences are sort of visionary in nature. You're going to talks because they're interesting. The hands-on component of a conference might be more understated compared to something like a self-directed learning course or, like hiring somebody to teach you something. So, it might be there, but again, we're getting back into the territory where it feels like somebody wanting to attend a conference, wanting to have that energy, wanting to be surrounded by peers, wanting to travel, wanting to do all those fun things, and then trying to kind of fit a narrative in there like, oh yeah, it's going to be good. I'll learn all this really cool stuff and then, come back and really have made a difference in my business or practice. I mean, maybe, but like really be clear about what it is you're going to learn by attending these talks and maybe like a hands-on workshop. Like how different do you expect to be beginning to end? And how exactly are you going to bring that to bear for your clients? And then if you really want to put this through the ringer of asking yourself whether this is a good idea or not, I would compare it to other things you could do with that time and money, like taking a course, like reading, a book, and so on and so forth. So give yourself an honest comparison of, sure, I could go to Python Developers Conf and learn these skills, but could I learn them in some other way? Could I take the money I would spend on the conference and the plane ticket or whatever the case may be and spend it on some other media and get the same or better results? And if you find a compelling case that the answer is no, I really should go on site and attend this conference, I do think that would yield better results, then you're probably onto something. So let me, from there, transition into my take on how conferences could be a good idea in some capacity for you as a freelancer. So, philosophically speaking, the thing that I would put in your head is that for the most part, conference attendance is more of a perk for employees. So, by and large, an employer is going to let an employee exercise some personal and career development budget and go attend a conference. That's the situation where I've seen conferences tend to make the most sense for attendees. So, you work for a company, you're a salaried employee, and every year they give you some amount of self-directed learning budget, or personal growth budget, or whatever you want to call it. And to me, sure, spending on your employees that way might benefit you in the long run, but I really, from the employer side, and as a business owner and a management consultant and all these things in the past, I would more view that as a perk for the employees than anything else. If it happens to benefit you as an employer, that's just gravy, but you're spending on the folks that are working for you in order for them to advance their own career. And I think that's just a good thing to do. It's good policy. It's good for morale. And that's usually the circumstance in which an employee will attend a conference. So you have some budget and you get to fly out to a new city, and you get to see these cool talks, and you get to socialize and meet people and have, good food and drinks at the happy hour and all that. And it's really kind of an employee perk. So the main default use case of a conference attendee, or of conference attendance, is for you as an employee to have a good time, and also kind of sort of maybe learn something, and come back enthused and fired up with lots of new ideas. But for a freelancer, where you're not a salaried employee, you're not on somebody else's dime, it gets to be a lot more of a questionable proposition. So it's pretty unlikely, so as an employee, your employer is essentially spending this money to make you happy. It's kind of a hybrid vacation and work thing. So as a freelancer, it's still the same thing, but remember, you're not having this paid for by somebody else. You're paying for it for yourself. So it gets to be a lot more questionable. From that perspective, as a freelancer, I would tend to, all things being equal, view conference attendance as kind of a vacation before you view it as anything else. So don't lie to yourself. You're probably doing this because it's fun. You want to spend the money, you want to socialize, you want to learn things. If you approach it from that perspective and compare it not to other lead generation tactics or other deliverable refinement tactics, but compare it to other ways to spend a vacation, that's probably a better mental model. So start from there. If from there you start to look at it and do what I said before, that the attendance is going to teach you some kind of valuable skill that improves your deliverable, then so be it, maybe. But where I would go next is to forget about, as a freelancer, attending conferences to get better at your craft. That's likely to be a waste. The thing to maybe go and attend a conference to do, if it's a focused conference, would be attend a conference where you're together with other business owners. So go and attend a conference and a workshop and all that about learning how to sell as a freelancer, or learning how to market as a freelancer, or learning how to run your books as a freelancer. So it's a lot more likely that a conference attendance, going to an event of this nature, will be better, or will be a good use of your time, if it's for you to learn the craft of business owner, not to learn your craft of deliverable. Now, I'm still sort of skeptical on this. I still think that there might be better ways for you to learn about CRMs and all this type of stuff, but it can be good for you to attend something like this if it's you and a bunch of other freelancers all kind of coming together the way you might for a mastermind. You're coming together to learn about how to sell freelance services. You're coming together to learn how to market freelance services, etc. I'm a lot less skeptical of that. That may well be a good use of your time, especially if it's structured in such a way that you're going there, sure, to learn, but also to get a bunch of fresh new ideas to kind of revitalize your business, or give you ideas for how to kind of take your practice to the next level or something like that. That might be worth doing. And that can get a little bit harder to quantify from a pure ROI perspective if you go off and you learn a bunch of tactics about how to sell your practice, and you put those into use and it works, then great. But it might also create a bunch of buzz that you translate into renewed vigor and enthusiasm for going out and trying to execute sales. And that can be harder to quantify and potentially a good use of your time. So I would, yeah, maybe get better at skills for your deliverable. I would focus more on conferences and events that were about how to get better at being a business owner, because that's really what you are if you're a freelancer. And then finally, if you're going to be at conferences, what I would do is forget, especially for lead gen in particular, I would forget about being with a cohort of similar people to you. What you really want to do is figure out where your buyers, so where do CTOs, for instance, hang out? What kind of conferences do they go to? Make a short list of those and then figure out how to get in there as a speaker. This is how you can really get some mileage out of conferences. So now imagine, instead of, going to a Python developers conference alongside a bunch of other Python developers and ... profit. No. Imagine figuring out how you, as a Python developer, but maybe to, go back to the example I was talking about before, you're helping marketers with some kind of data visualization. I mean, then you're not even marketing to CTOs, but so now you're going to a conference of marketers. And how do you go and give a talk to this conference of marketers about the importance of like visualizing data and unifying data sources across like analytics and Search Console and all that? So start to think about that. And now if you can put together a talk that you can give to your prospective buyers, this is excellent for lead generation, because you are probably for free, or you might even be getting paid, certainly like transportation costs covered or whatever. You are getting subsidized to go and have the undivided attention of your prospects and to teach them something valuable. That is excellent for lead generation. By all means, do that. So if you're looking at conferences, I guess the thing I'll wrap by saying is, forget attending them, figure out how to go and speak at those conferences, and figure out how to speak at the kind of conferences that your buyers are going to attend and be able to learn something from you. That to me is the best use of time and money for conferences. And by the way, if you do that, other people are going to be spending money. So it'll mainly just be your time to get in front of and teach your prospects a thing or two. And then there's a pretty good chance that they will think to reach out to you, especially because there's a decent chance that, depending on the nature of the conference and the intellectual property rights, they might republish a video of you giving a talk later. You might be able to republish a video of you giving a talk, or just repurpose that talk into other media. So to circle all the way back, if you're a freelancer out there, I would really be skeptical of the idea of attending conferences as being good. Instead of focusing on that and how you can make it good, forget it. I would look out and say, who buys from me? What kind of conferences do they attend? And what kind of talk could I give where they would be interested in asking me questions? That's how I would focus on conferences. And that will be good for your lead generation beyond just the subject of how you can, do stuff with conferences. If you're figuring out how to have a strong, clear message for your buyers that they would be interested in and ask you questions about, you're going to have a whole lot of luck with positioning, marketing, and sales across the board. So hopefully all of that makes sense, and I will catch you all next time.